I'm Lauren Everett, 32 years old, a senior manager at a major healthcare system in the city. My husband, Dr. Nathan Everett, is a leading pharmaceutical research scientist at Meridian Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest drug development corporations in the country. People often look at us and smile with admiration. The perfect American dream couple. Two shining careers, solid finances, and a stunning modern home in the affluent suburb of Westfield. Our house has floor-to-ceiling glass windows, minimalist yet refined interiors, sitting on a street shaded by maple trees, where in autumn, golden and red leaves fall thickly like a flawless painting. From the outside, our life looks exactly like a magazine cover, successful, stable, and full of love. There was only one thing that kept everything from feeling truly complete. For 3 years, we had been trying to have a child. Month after month, pregnancy tests with a single line appeared with cruel consistency, a cold reminder that the thing we wanted most remained just out of reach. The doctors ran every test imaginable. Hormones, fallopian tubes, sperm quality, everything was perfect. The final conclusion? Unexplained infertility. The phrase sounded scientific yet meaningless, like a polite way of saying that science itself had no answer. It affects millions of couples around the world, but when it happens to you, all you feel is alone and powerless. Disappointment began to seep into every small corner of our marriage. The hugs after each failed attempt grew shorter. The silent late-night conversations grew longer. I felt like a failure, even though I knew, logically, that it wasn't anyone's fault. And Nathan, he remained steady, remained optimistic in a way that felt almost scientific. As a senior researcher, Nathan had access to the most advanced studies on reproductive health. Our home office slowly turned into a living library, stacks of medical journals piled high, thick printouts of research papers, nutrition charts covering the walls. He read them with absolute focus, the kind of focus that had helped him make major breakthroughs in his career. "Science will bring us a miracle," he would say every time I slipped into despair. His voice was firm, his eyes lit with unshakable belief. I loved him for that. Loved his dedication, loved the way he turned pain into a problem to be solved. When colleagues at Meridian mentioned experimental treatments not yet widely released, Nathan would immediately dive into researching them, then come home and explain everything to me with the excitement of someone who had just touched a groundbreaking discovery. The more we failed, the more attentive Nathan became. He monitored my stress levels the way he would track a clinical trial. My diet was optimized down to the last calorie. Sleep schedules, exercise routines, even the bedroom temperature. Everything was meticulously logged into a massive spreadsheet. Sometimes I felt less like a wife and more like his most cherished research subject. But I didn't blame him. Because in my darkest moments, Nathan's love was what held me together. He held me, whispered that we would get through this, that he would never give up. And I believed him. Believed that one day, science, or a miracle, would finally smile on us. I never once doubted his love. Never once suspected that behind that devotion was something different. That the man I loved most, the man who was trying so hard to give me a child, was the very one quietly destroying every chance we had. Act 2. When my period was 3 days late on a chilly October morning, my first reaction wasn't hope. I was far too used to my body playing cruel tricks on me. After 3 straight years of disappointment, I had learned to lock my emotions down tight, not letting hope slip in too early anymore. It only made the collapse hurt more when everything fell apart. But then the nausea started. At first it was mild, like a brief bout of motion sickness in the morning. Then it grew more persistent, clinging to me throughout the day. I started to wonder, just a little, what if this time was real? I bought a pregnancy test during my lunch break at a pharmacy 2 blocks from my office so no one would recognize me. The tiny box sat motionless in my purse for 6 hours. I didn't dare take it out, afraid of being disappointed again. so afraid that my hands trembled just thinking about facing that familiar single line. Finally, in the office bathroom, the door locked tight, I gathered every bit of courage I had. This test would either crush the dream once again or change my life forever. Two pink lines appeared almost instantly. Clear. Impossible to mistake. Not faint at all. I stood frozen, staring at the test until my vision blurred. Joy surged through my chest, so powerful and overwhelming that I had to brace myself against the wall to keep from falling. 3 years of waiting, 3 years of tears and prayers, had finally led to this moment. I was afraid that if I blinked, those two lines would vanish like a dream. I stared for several more minutes, then carefully wrapped the test in tissue paper and slipped it into my purse like the most precious treasure in the world. That evening, I gave it to Nathan. I had imagined this moment hundreds of times, but his reaction still exceeded anything I had expected. The man who was always calm, always analyzing everything through scientific logic, suddenly shed that shell completely. His eyes went wide, then filled with tears in an instant. He pulled me into a tight embrace, lifting me off the floor, spinning me around right there in the kitchen as tears streamed down his face. "I knew it," he whispered into my hair, his voice breaking with emotion. "I always knew science would find a way for us to have a child." That night, we celebrated with sparkling apple cider, the only thing I dared drink now. We laughed, we cried, we dreamed about things that now seemed within reach. Nathan's joy was so pure, it erased any tiny trace of doubt still lingering in my heart. This baby healed every wound that 3 years of disappointment had left behind. It brought back a closeness, an intimacy I had once feared was gone forever. I looked at him, at the man I loved more than anything, and thought that, finally, everything was okay. We had made it through. We had won. Act 3. The confirmation appointment with Dr. Eleanor Brooks, my obstetrician, marked the beginning of the happiest chapter of my life. The clinic was bright, filled with the familiar scent of antiseptic, the steady hum of machines like a reassuring background rhythm. Dr. Brooks was a composed woman, highly respected in the medical community, her voice always carrying a certainty that made patients trust her easily. She confirmed that I was about 6 weeks pregnant. The fetus was healthy, developing right on schedule. On the ultrasound screen, all we could see was a tiny dot, so small that if it hadn't been pointed out, I might have missed it. Then the doctor turned on the sound. A heartbeat filled the room, fast and urgent, as if that tiny life were determined to assert its existence. I don't remember who cried first. I only know that Nathan's hand tightened around mine, and in that moment, all the years of waiting melted away. Nathan's change happened almost immediately. From a husband who was relieved and joyful, he shifted into the role of a devoted caretaker at a speed I barely had time to notice. Just days after the pregnancy was confirmed, our home life was completely reorganized, revolving around my body and the growing life inside me. Nathan's scientific knowledge, the very thing I had always admired in his career, now became the foundation for every decision. He knew more about prenatal nutrition, fetal development milestones, and potential pregnancy complications than most expectant fathers I had ever met, and he used that knowledge with absolute seriousness. "Your body is carrying out the most complex biological process in human history," he would often say as he prepared my morning vitamins, carefully placing each pill onto a plate. "Everything we do now, everything you eat, every supplement you take, every decision we make, will affect our child for their entire life." The supplement regimen he designed left me both amazed and overwhelmed. Every morning, alongside my meal, were 14 different supplements, arranged neatly like a laboratory display: prenatal vitamins, omega-3, iron, calcium, and a long list of specialized nutrients he had sourced from medical supply companies. He explained each one patiently, describing how it would support the baby's brain development, strengthen bone and organ formation, or help me maintain my health throughout what was known to be a demanding pregnancy. "This one," he said, holding up a small capsule. Contains a compound developed by researchers in Switzerland, specifically for neural tube formation. It's not found in standard prenatal vitamins, but I managed to get it through industry connections. I felt grateful. Truly. That supplement routine, though complex, made me believe I was doing everything possible for the child growing inside me. The ritual of taking the pills every morning, one by one, in the correct order, gradually became symbolic. It felt like a quiet promise, a tangible proof of the love and care I had for the life not yet born. The first 3 months were hell with severe morning sickness. I was nauseous from the moment I opened my eyes until late afternoon, barely able to swallow a few crackers or bland smoothies. Even the smell of ordinary food made my stomach churn, leaving me curled up on the sofa, arms wrapped around my belly, wondering if I could endure it. Nathan reacted instantly, taking over all the cooking. I analyzed your nutritional needs and cross-referenced them with foods that are easiest to tolerate during nausea, he explained one evening, handing me a detailed printed meal plan complete with specific cracker brands, specialty ginger tea, and protein smoothie recipes. Every morning before work, he prepared 3 different options, neatly arranged in the fridge with careful sticky notes. Heat 2 minutes at 800 watts, 250 calories, 20 grams of protein, high in folate. Every night, he came home with bags of fresh ingredients, making ginger soup or simple rice, porridge that was gentle yet nourishing, testing recipes until I nodded and said, "This is good." Think of this as a scientific experiment, he joked while stirring a pot of soup, lifting a small spoonful to my lips, his eyes closely monitoring my reaction. We're optimizing your recovery from nausea while supporting the baby's best possible development. I smiled weakly, swallowed the warm soup, and thought he was extraordinary. That devotion soothed every discomfort, turning miserable days into proof of his love. How could I doubt him? He was taking such perfect care of us. Yet in between those moments, a thought would sometimes flicker. How did he know so much? Why did everything fit together so precisely? The special pills, the experimental formulas, but I brushed it aside. That was Nathan, my scientist, the man who would do anything for his family. At the time, I looked at him and thought how lucky I was. I believed that this devotion was love, and that everything we were doing, step by step, was bringing us closer to the complete family we had always dreamed of. As my pregnancy entered the second trimester, I started to feel better. The nausea eased, my belly slowly rounded beneath loose sweaters, and my baby's first kicks made me smile every night. This was supposed to be the most beautiful stage, the phase every pregnant woman dreams about. But with Nathan, his involvement didn't lessen, it increased. And now, looking back, I realize it no longer felt like devotion. It felt like control, carefully disguised beneath the polished surface of scientific expertise. His work at Meridian Pharmaceuticals grew increasingly demanding. Long business trips, research conferences across Europe, late-night meetings with new drug development teams. He often missed my routine prenatal appointments. Every time he did, he would hold me tightly when he got home, his eyes filled with what looked like genuine regret, his voice low, as if truly heartbroken. "I wish I could be there every time," he said, his hand gently stroking my belly, his gaze distant. "But the project I'm working on, it could change the entire field of prenatal medicine. It's ironic, really. I'm researching ways to help thousands of women have safer pregnancies, yet I can't be by your side as much as I want." I nodded, holding him back, believing he was truly sacrificing himself for something greater. How could I blame him? To make up for it, he threw himself into managing my daily health with even greater intensity. He bought a professional blood pressure monitor, a digital scale precise down to the gram, even an at-home fetal heart rate monitor. Every morning, he checked the readings and recorded them on charts that covered the walls of his office. Weight gain curves, energy levels, fetal movement counts, all meticulously plotted like a real scientific experiment. He even created a personalized exercise plan, prenatal yoga routines, how many minutes I should walk each day, rest intervals between sets. Everything calculated based on my gestational week and body metrics. Your body is changing every single day, he explained, his eyes lighting up as he pointed to the graphs. We have to adjust to optimize oxygen delivery to the baby and reduce the risk of preeclampsia. I followed his instructions because he was right, and because I wanted to do everything possible for my child. But what became hardest for me to swallow was the supplement regimen. By the second trimester, I was taking more than 20 pills a day. 20. They were lined up in long rows on a wooden tray he had made himself, each compartment labeled with names and times. Large pills, small ones, clear capsules, bright orange tablets, all sourced from special channels he accessed through industry connections. Every time he added a new one, he would sit beside me, holding up the bottle, his voice animated as if sharing a major discovery. "This is a new compound," he said, lifting a blue capsule under the light. "Preliminary trials show a significant increase in IQ. Most obstetricians don't even know about it yet, but I have data from a research group in Sweden." I looked at the pill, then at him, and swallowed. Because he was Nathan, my scientist, the man who always knew more than anyone else. I trusted him completely. I was a healthcare administrator, not a clinical physician. I knew how to run hospitals, not deep pharmacology. Every prenatal test came back normal. The baby was developing well, and I felt healthier than I had in years. Dr. Brooks even praised me. "Your baby is developing perfectly, Lauren. Congratulations." So why doubt anything? Why think that my husband, the man who loved me enough to do everything for me, might be doing something wrong? I brushed aside those fleeting moments of discomfort. The times he checked the pill tray twice before leaving for work. The way he asked for every detail of what the doctor said when he wasn't there. The late-night calls he took in his office, voice lowered, door firmly shut. I told myself it was just the carefulness of a devoted husband, a scientist trying to protect his family. And so, I didn't ask questions. I just kept doing what he told me to do. One of the most frightening things, looking back, is how Nathan slowly isolated me from everyone around me. Not by shouting or issuing crude prohibitions. No, he was far smarter than that. He did it gradually, logically, and always under the banner of what's best for you and the baby. I was 5 months pregnant, my belly clearly visible beneath loose maternity clothes. One evening, we were sitting down to dinner, the warm kitchen light falling on the salad he had prepared so carefully. Nathan set his fork down and looked at me with an expression that was serious but full of concern. "I've been thinking about Dr. Brooks," he said softly, his hand resting gently over mine. "She's good, no one denies that. But her approach, it's quite traditional. With my background in pharmaceutical research, I think we should consult a pregnancy specialist, someone who has access to the most advanced monitoring techniques." What he said sounded so reasonable that I almost nodded immediately. For months now, his knowledge had kept me healthier than I'd ever been. If he said it would be better for the baby, then why not? I smiled and squeezed his hand. That's how we switched to Dr. Victor Hayes. Even the name sounded impressive. Harvard graduate, advanced training at Johns Hopkins, currently collaborating on research with several major pharmaceutical companies. His clinic was located in a prestigious medical center, about a 45-minute drive from our home. Cutting-edge equipment, large screens, 4D ultrasound machines. Everything looked so professional that I felt like I was receiving care at an entirely higher level. After the first appointment, Nathan drove us home, his eyes bright with excitement. "Dr. Hayes truly understands the importance of optimizing every aspect of fetal development," he said, hands steady on the steering wheel, voice full of confidence. "He's willing to work with our comprehensive care plan. Most doctors just don't have the expertise to do that." Everything felt perfect. Dr. Hayes's clinic was always crowded. Appointments were hard to book, and each visit lasted exactly 15 minutes. The longer commute made it easier for Nathan to be forced to miss more appointments because of work trips, and now that sounded more reasonable than ever. Most importantly, Dr. Hayes's intensive monitoring made Nathan's massive supplement regimen and detailed control seem less excessive and more like a medical necessity. At the same time, Nathan began gradually cutting off my social connections. "I know you love your book club," he said one evening as I scrolled through my phone, checking this month's meetup. He sat beside me, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, his voice filled with genuine concern. "But being in a closed room with 6 other people, the risk of respiratory viruses is pretty high." Dr. Hayes mentioned that pregnant women have weaker immune systems. Just a simple flu could cause serious complications for both you and the baby. I paused and looked at him. His eyes were full of worry. At least, that's what I believed at the time. I nodded and canceled the meeting. Then came family gatherings. "Your mom had a cold just last week," he reminded me gently, his tone regretful. "I don't want to take any chances." The professional conference I had planned to attend? Gradually, those reasons stacked up, solid as a brick wall built from science and love. I began spending most of my time at home. My phone rang less often. Friends texted to check in. I replied briefly and left it at that. Nathan became my only source of medical information, the only person I spoke to daily. He was always there, bringing me water, checking my readings, asking about every kick from the baby. I thought I was lucky to have such a devoted husband. I didn't realize I was being completely isolated, that the people who might have noticed something was wrong, my familiar Dr. Brooks, close friends, family, had been pushed away so skillfully that I had willingly helped do it. I thought he was protecting me, protecting our baby. At the time, it all felt natural. I didn't know I was being slowly separated, not by force, but by reason. That December morning was bitterly cold, the wind whistling through lightly snow-covered streets in Westfield, and I was exactly 37 weeks pregnant. My belly felt heavy, the baby kicking forcefully, as if reminding me that birth was only weeks away. This was the final, critical late-term appointment, a full check to make sure everything was ready. I imagined Nathan beside me, his hand gripping mine like always, his eyes lighting up when he heard our baby's heartbeat. But he wasn't. The night before, he sat on the edge of the bed, his hand stroking my belly, his voice filled with such sincere regret that his eyes turned red. "I'm so sorry I can't go with you," he whispered, lips pressed tight as if holding back pain. "The presentation to Meridian's board tomorrow morning. It decides my career. This research could revolutionize prenatal medicine, bring in millions in funding for years. My work will help millions of babies around the world, Lauren. You understand, don't you?" I nodded, swallowing my disappointment, pulling him into my arms. His research had always been our pride. I told myself, just this once. Dr. Hayes was excellent. Everything would be fine. The next morning, I drove alone through the icy fog, tires crunching over snow. My hands clenched the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, my heart pounding for no clear reason. The baby kept kicking steadily, and every number Nathan had measured at home each morning had been perfect. Blood pressure stable, weight on target, fetal heart rate strong. Nothing abnormal for 9 months straight. So why was I anxious? Why did my throat feel tight, like an invisible hand squeezing it shut? I glanced at the clock and turned my car toward Dr. Brooks's clinic. Dr. Brooks's office was quieter than usual, the scent of disinfectant mixing with the cold seeping in through fogged glass windows. She began as always. Blood pressure, normal. Weight, appropriate gain. The baby's heartbeat echoed strong and steady, like a rhythmic drum through the speakers. The ultrasound appeared. Full-term fetus, head down in the correct position, ample amniotic fluid, healthy placenta. I exhaled in relief, smiling at my baby's image on the screen. The tiny face, limbs stretched out as if waving. Perfect, almost ready for a healthy delivery. But then, Dr. Brooks had been chatting comfortably, the probe gliding lightly over my gel-coated belly. Suddenly, she went silent. The probe stopped, then moved again, slower, more cautiously, scanning angle after angle, as if searching for something. The friendly smile vanished from her face, replaced by intense concentration. Brows furrowed, lips pressed tight, eyes locked on the screen until veins stood out on her forehead. Her hand trembled slightly as she adjusted the zoom and angles, the machine's beeping growing rapid in the suddenly heavy air. My heart dropped. Doctor? Is something wrong? My voice wavered, my hands instinctively wrapping around my belly, eyes fixed on the screen where my baby still lay peacefully. The room felt frozen, the ticking wall clock suddenly deafening. I need to check a few more things, she said, her voice controlled but rough, not looking at me as she turned to the computer. The electronic medical record screen lit up as she scrolled furiously through recent blood test results. Numbers I had never paid attention to. Markers Nathan had said were perfect thanks to the supplement regimen. Her face tightened further, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cold room, her mouse clicking rapidly. She cross-checked ultrasound findings with blood work, amniotic fluid. Silence stretched into eternity, broken only by my shallow breathing and the printer whirring softly. Finally, she spun around and looked straight at me. Her face was heavy, drained of color under the fluorescent lights, her voice low and dull like a death sentence. Mrs. Everett, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. The next few minutes in that cold examination room completely shattered my world. Dr. Brooks sat down in the chair across from me, both hands gripping the freshly printed test results, the paper crumpled from how tightly she was holding it. She looked straight at me, not avoiding my gaze, but her voice trembled. A seasoned doctor I had never seen like this before. Mrs. Everett, she said, her tone heavy like a funeral bell. Your blood contains extremely high levels of multiple pharmaceutical compounds, substances that should absolutely never be present in the body of a pregnant woman. She slid the paper toward me, red numbers flashing before my eyes. Experimental fertility drugs, hormone inhibitors, and a series of compounds designed to disrupt normal fetal development. I stared at the page, my mind blank. The technical terms danced like a foreign language, but the terror on her face was so clear, it made my heart stop. I don't understand, I whispered, my voice breaking, my hands instinctively wrapping around my belly as if to shield my baby. How did these things get into my blood? I only took supplements, the pills Nathan gave me every morning. Dr. Brooks looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly, her expression darkening as if confirming her worst fear. That is exactly the problem, she said, her voice hardening. These substances are not available on the market. They require advanced pharmacological knowledge and access to tightly controlled research compounds. Only someone with specialized pharmaceutical training could administer them to you continuously and systematically like this. The blow hit like a delayed explosion in my head. Nathan, everything rushed back at once. The optimization pills he handed me every morning with a loving smile, the special bottles from Swiss Labs, the precise control down to the milligram, the way he isolated me from Dr. Brooks, from friends, from family. None of it was love. It was a plan. The room began to spin. I clutched the arm of the chair, my breathing rapid, close to suffocation. But why? The question escaped me, my voice shattered, even as I began to fear the answer myself. Dr. Brooks looked at me, her eyes reddened with anger and compassion. I can only tell you what the medical evidence shows, she replied, her voice low but firm. Someone deliberately attempted to destroy this pregnancy using the most sophisticated pharmaceutical knowledge available. The fact that you and the baby are still alive at this point is nothing short of a miracle. I sat there, my hands trembling on my belly, feeling my baby's faint kick. The child Nathan had said he loved more than anything, Everything I had believed, every happy moment of the past 3 years, was now soaked in poison. The man I loved was killing our child, and if Brooks hadn't discovered this today, I might not even be alive to tell the story. I looked out the window, snow still falling thickly outside, and for the first time felt a bone-deep cold. Not from the weather, but from the horrifying truth that had just been exposed. Nathan hadn't just deceived me. He wanted us dead. The words that followed from Dr. Brooks rang out like gunshots in the deadly silence of the room. She gripped my hand tightly, looking straight at me, her voice urgent. "Ms. Everett, listen to me. You need to leave this clinic immediately. Go somewhere safe. Do not go home. Do not contact your husband, and call the police as soon as possible." Her words cut through the shock wrapped around me like a hot blade. This was no longer a medical error, not a pharmaceutical accident. This was survival. The man I had given my entire life to, my unborn child, the man I loved more than anyone, had been trying to kill us. Systematically, coldly, for months. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the chair to keep from falling. Dr. Brooks didn't let go, her voice low but urgent. "I will help you. Now call the person you trust most, right now." I fumbled for my phone, my head spinning, then dialed my sister Ashley, a specialized nurse, the only person Nathan hadn't completely cut me off from. My voice shattered as I briefly told her what I had just heard. Ashley was silent for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like a lifetime. Then she nearly screamed, "Do not leave the clinic for a single step until I get there." The 20-minute wait stretched like hell. I sat curled up in the chair, arms wrapped around my belly, feeling each weak kick from my baby, like a plea for help. Dr. Brooks didn't leave my side for a moment. She pulled her chair closer, her voice calm but firm, explaining every detail so I could understand just how badly I had been harmed. "The compounds in your blood," she said, pointing to the chart on the screen, "include experimental hormone-suppressing drugs, substances that directly interfere with the placenta, and a series of toxins that cause developmental deformities. They are designed to lead to miscarriage or stillbirth, slowly, naturally, without leaving clear traces." She paused and looked straight into my eyes. "The dosages were calculated perfectly. Too high would cause obvious symptoms. Any doctor would catch it. Too low would be ineffective. They wanted you to lose the baby and have it look like a natural complication." A bone-deep cold spread through me. Terrifyingly precise. Nathan had turned love into a weapon. The Swiss lab pills, the neatly arranged supplement trays every morning, the warm smiles as he watched me swallow each capsule. All of it was carefully prepared poison. When the clinic door flew open and Ashley rushed in, her face pale, eyes red with fury and fear, I finally broke down. She wrapped her arms around me, holding me so tightly as if afraid I might disappear. "Come on, sweetheart, we're leaving, now." Dr. Brooks pressed a thick envelope into our hands. Complete copies of my medical records, blood results, ultrasound images, all stamped and signed. "This is evidence," she said firmly. "The police will need it. And, Ms. Everett, you survived. Stay strong." We left the clinic through the back entrance, Ashley gripping my hand tightly, her eyes constantly checking behind us. Her car sped through the snow-covered streets. Ashley's husband, Detective Robert Martinez, was a seasoned police officer with 20 years of experience specializing in domestic violence. When we sat in their living room that night, I curled up on the sofa, Ashley close beside me. Robert held the envelope of medical documents Dr. Brooks had given us, his brow furrowed, his initial expression the familiar professional skepticism. "Poisoning with experimental drugs?" he repeated, his voice low as he flipped through the blood test results under the lamp. "Sounds more like a Hollywood movie than a real case." But only minutes later, as he read deeper, the toxin concentration numbers, ultrasound charts, Dr. Brooks's notes, his face changed, his eyes darkened, his jaw clenched, the hand holding the papers trembling with rage. He slammed the envelope onto the coffee table, the thud making both Ashley and me flinch. "This isn't just attempted murder," he said, his voice low but sharp as a blade. "This is one of the most sophisticated domestic violence cases I've ever seen. A plan spanning months, deep expertise, flawless deception. He's not an amateur, he's a monster." Just hours later, Robert had called the FBI's domestic terrorism unit. He didn't wait. His voice on the phone was cold and professional, but I could see his hand gripping the phone until it turned white. The use of experimental pharmaceutical compounds in a murder plot fell under federal jurisdiction. The investigation exploded immediately. Local police, FBI agents, the FDA, even international coordination to trace the origins of the deadly substances in my blood. And then, everything unraveled into something even more horrifying than I had imagined. Nathan had been having an affair for over 2 years with Dr. Amanda Stevens, a research colleague at a rival pharmaceutical company. Seized phone and email records revealed not only sickly intimate messages, but also detailed chilling discussions about how to eliminate me and my unborn child to clear the way for them. "She and the baby are the only obstacles," one of Nathan's emails read. "When it's over, we'll be free." But the most damning evidence was on his own personal computer and work files. Robert showed me, through a secured laptop, Nathan's meticulous notes. Not a diary of emotions, a killer's manual. Each page laid out a step in the plan: compound names, exact dosages by gestational week, projected timing for miscarriage, methods of disguising them in ordinary vitamins, and even contingencies. My hands shook so badly I had to let go of the mouse as I read. Every pill I swallowed each morning had been custom prepared by him. A harmless vitamin shell on the outside, a core of toxins that destroyed the placenta, suppressed hormones, caused gradual deformities. The appointments he missed were precisely the ones with the most detailed blood tests. He had calculated everything. And then I saw the most horrifying part: contingency plan. If slow poisoning failed, if my baby kept holding on, then in the final weeks, the new vials he had already prepared would move to phase 2. Compounds that caused massive hemorrhage, seizures, cardiac arrest during labor itself. He didn't just want me to lose the baby. He wanted both of us to die on the delivery table, made to look like natural complications, a tragic medical accident. I sat there staring at the screen, tears falling without me noticing. The man who had knelt by my belly, whispering words of love, who had cried when he heard our baby's heartbeat, had planned to kill us with the cold precision of a scientist. Every smile, every warm embrace, every "I do everything for you and the baby," all lies. He wanted me dead, so he could be free with his mistress. Robert placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice low but firm. "He will never touch you again, Lauren. We have enough evidence to put him away for the rest of his life." For the first time in days, I felt something stronger than fear. Anger. Resolve. Nathan thought he had calculated everything perfectly, but he forgot one thing. I was still alive. My child was still alive. And now, I would make him pay for every dose of poison he had forced me to swallow. Throughout the months of investigation and legal proceedings that followed, the global medical community could not stop marveling at one thing: my baby and I were still alive. Alive after months of systematic, sophisticated poisoning with compounds specifically engineered to kill a fetus in the earliest stages. Medical conferences buzzed with discussion, academic papers were written, and Dr. Brooks, the woman who saved our lives, constantly consulted specialists as far away as Europe, trying to explain what they called an unexplainable medical miracle. From a scientific standpoint, this should not have been possible. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a leading obstetrics specialist brought in to oversee my care after the case broke, told me during an appointment. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a mix of astonishment and respect. "The compounds in your bloodstream should have caused a miscarriage within the first few weeks. They attack the placenta, destroy hormonal balance, cause irreversible developmental defects. The fact that both mother and baby survived is something we have never seen. Experts proposed countless theories, debating fiercely as if solving an impossible equation. My baseline health, years of disciplined nutrition, and regular exercise before pregnancy may have created a natural shield, allowing my body to resist some of the damage. My child's genetic resilience, inherited from both me and Nathan, may have helped her hold on against impossible odds. But the most critical factor, they believed, was the way Nathan had gradually increased the dosages, slowly, meticulously, to avoid detection. That very caution, unintentionally, gave my body and my baby time to adapt, to tolerate some of the toxins instead of being destroyed immediately. The remainder of my pregnancy became a full-scale medical campaign. I was transferred to a specialized center under the constant supervision of top physicians. They had to carefully purge the remaining toxins from my blood, milligram by milligram, with painful precision, because even the smallest mistake could harm my baby. The most advanced equipment was brought in: 24/7 fetal monitoring, high-resolution ultrasounds, daily blood tests. Each time a needle pierced my vein, I whispered to my child, "Hold on, we're almost free." Despite everything, the pregnancy progressed with stubborn resilience. Regular ultrasounds showed my baby, though smaller than average, though once threatened by the abnormalities Dr. Brooks had discovered that day, was still growing. The early growth delays gradually stabilized, then improved day by day as the toxins were flushed out. Dr. Walsh smiled every time she looked at the screen. "Look, Lauren, she's catching up. She's strong, just like her mother." Emily Everett was born on a February morning with heavy snow falling when the world outside seemed frozen solid. She weighed just 2.4 kilograms, tiny compared to the average, but her first cry rang out strong and sharp, tearing through the delivery room like a declaration of victory. It wasn't just the cry of a newborn baby. It was the roar of survival, of adversity defeated, of a future that had nearly been stolen, now resting safely in my arms. The delivery had been prepared like a military operation. Top doctors on standby, the most advanced monitoring equipment, antidotes ready for any complications from the months of poisoning. I lay there, drenched in sweat, in pain so intense I bit my lip until it bled. But every contraction reminded me we were winning. When Dr. Walsh placed Emily on my chest, she was warm and slick, her eyes tightly shut, but her tiny hand gripped my finger as if she would never let go. I looked down at my child, and everything broke open. This baby, small, perfect, down to every soft curl of hair, had fought inside me for months. The poisons Nathan had meticulously mixed into every pill, the nights he whispered words of love while planning our deaths. Emily had resisted it all. She survived. She won. And now she lay there, breathing steadily against my chest, living proof that evil does not always win. Emily's first weeks were a tense cycle of monitoring, constant blood tests, weekly developmental checks. The results showed she was born carrying traces of the toxic compounds. Substances that had once flowed through my blood crossed the placenta and attacked her. But the levels dropped with astonishing speed, her tiny body processing and eliminating them like a true warrior. No deformities, no lasting damage, just a healthy little girl, bright-eyed, smiling wide whenever I sang to her. I recovered slowly in a new home, Ashley's house, now our temporary refuge. During sleepless nights nursing her, changing diapers in the dark, I watched Emily sleep with tears streaming down my face. The ordeal had shattered every illusion I had about marriage, about blind trust. It tore me apart piece by piece. But from those fragments, I found a strength I never knew existed. My love for Emily isn't just fierce, it is fire, protective, relentless, forged by the knowledge that we almost lost everything. Emily is the clearest proof of that, a tiny girl who defeated a killer simply by surviving. And I, the mother who was deceived, isolated, poisoned, am no longer the same woman, stronger, more prepared, and determined to make him pay to the very last drop. Nathan Everett's case entered legal history as a horrifying turning point, one of the world's first successful convictions for intentional murder using pharmaceutical compounds. The trial was not merely a place where justice was carried out, it was where his darkest truth was stripped bare under the light. The evidence against him piled up like a mountain, medical records detailed like a grotesque scientific experiment, hundreds of emails and messages with his lover Amanda Stevens, where he coldly discussed how to deal with me and the baby as if it were a simple logistical problem. Leading pharmaceutical experts took the stand, their voices trembling with outrage as they explained each compound. None of them had any legitimate benefit for pregnancy. They were designed for one purpose only: to kill. The defense made one final attempt, arguing that Nathan had merely been trying to ensure a healthy pregnancy through experimental compounds. The prosecution crushed that claim within minutes. Experts held up charts, pointing to bright red numbers on the large screen. There is no beneficial effect. Only destruction. Only death. The trial also exposed his blackened psyche. Psychiatrists testified in grave tones that Nathan suffered from a rare form of antisocial personality disorder, the kind of person who could smile at colleagues, embrace his wife each night, climb the career ladder brilliantly, while calmly planning to murder the people closest to him with the cold precision of a machine. And then came the moment that silenced the entire courtroom. Amanda Stevens took the witness stand. Her face was pale, her eyes avoiding Nathan, the man who had once been her lover. In exchange for a reduced sentence, she testified against him. Her voice shook but remained clear as she read aloud the messages. She and the baby are the only obstacles. When it's over, we'll be free. She described how he had discussed killing me as if outlining a research project. No emotion, no hesitation, only calculations. Nathan sat there, expressionless, staring ahead, but I saw his hands gripping the chair until they turned white. He was no longer a devoted husband. He was a defeated man. On sentencing day, the courtroom was packed. The judge looked straight at him, his voice ringing like a final hammer blow. Nathan Everett, you abused your professional knowledge, abused your position as a husband and future father to attempt the murder of your wife and unborn child. This betrayal of trust is matched only by the sophistication and cruelty of the crimes you committed. I sentence you to life imprisonment. No parole, no clemency, never. The gavel struck. Nathan was handcuffed and led away. For the first time, he turned to look at me, sitting in the front row, Emily sleeping peacefully in my arms. His eyes met mine for a single second. No remorse, no apology, only emptiness. I watched him disappear behind the iron doors, then bent down to kiss Emily's forehead. She stirred, gripping my finger as she always did. He had tried to kill us with the very thing he was most proud of: science. But we survived. And now, every day, I watch Emily grow healthy, her laughter filling the house. I know this is the sweetest revenge of all. Not prison, not the sentence, but life, bright, unbreakable, the life of the child he was determined to erase. The years after Emily was born were not a fairy tale right away. They were long days of fighting to heal emotional wounds, fighting to trust the world again, and fighting to become the mother my child deserved. I lived in constant vigilance, waking up every night from nightmares. Nathan standing by the bed, holding a tray of pills with that familiar smile. Therapy stretched on for years, sessions spent sobbing behind closed doors, admitting that I had once loved a monster. Emily was monitored closely. Top pediatric specialists examined her every month: cognition, motor skills, emotional development. Every time the results came back normal, I cried, this time from happiness. By her third birthday, Emily had surpassed every developmental milestone. She ran, laughed, asked why, endlessly like any other child. There was no trace of the months of poisoning in the womb. She didn't just survive. She triumphed, brilliantly, unbreakably. My story changed the world. If only a little. Medical schools, added new chapters on domestic abuse to pharmacology curricula. Future doctors now learn to recognize signs of subtle poisoning within families. Hospitals changed protocols, no longer allowing partners to fully control a pregnant woman's medications. The FBI established databases to track abuse of experimental drugs. Pharmaceutical companies tightened security, monitoring every vial of compounds. Nathan's crime exposed the gaps, and we filled them. 5 years later, I decided to open my heart again. Dating. The word trust once made me tremble. Every new man was examined under a microscope. Did he ask too many questions about medications? Did he try to control Emily's medical appointments? I was cautious to the point of pain. Then David Parker appeared, a pediatric nurse who had once cared for Emily. We began as friends. Conversations at the clinic, text messages checking on my daughter's health. He was patient, never pushed. He loved Emily before he loved me. He waited until I was ready to tell the whole horrific story. And when I did, he simply held me and cried, "You are stronger than anyone I know." Our wedding took place 3 years later. Simple, warm, filled with flowers and laughter. Emily, 8 years old, was our little flower girl, scattering petals down the aisle with the brightest smile in the world. Our story is proof. No matter how deep the darkness, no matter how devastating the betrayal, people can heal. They can love again. They can build a real family, one where love is not a weapon, but a safe refuge. Nathan will die in prison, alone, forgotten. And we live, radiant, free, and filled with love. This is not a tragic ending. This is victory. If this story moved you, please like, share, and comment below. Where are you watching from? Every comment means the world to me. Thank you for staying with me until the very end.